and welcome to Forbes India Pathbreakers with me, Neha Bothra. My guest today is a chess prodigy. He became India's first grandmaster, went on to win 5 world championship titles, and has become one of the most historic players ever. I'm talking about Viswanathan Anand, who is the guest today on Pathbreakers. Stay tuned. Sir, thank you so much for joining us on Forbes India Pathbreakers.
Thank you.
You've had a historic career, but tell me, when was the first time you felt you had a shot at being a world champion?
When I was 6 or 7 years old, if you had asked me, what is your goal in chess, I would have said world champion. Some of the first books I had were collections of games played by world champions, Karpov, Tal, Spassky. So for me, it was just obvious that that's what I was going to do. Now, what kind of, is that a dream or a realization? That's a harder question. I would put it this way. For me, it was always obvious that that's what I should aim for. And then every year, it seemed less unrealistic.
You were one of the first Indians to storm into the global scene when it comes to chess. Russia was really the fulcrum of having the geniuses in the game, the masters in chess. Was it intimidating at some level? The first time you had to face some of these players, what was going through your mind?
A lot of it is in our imagination. I'd play them confidently. Sometimes they would surprise me and show me, or maybe show me how strong they were, and then I would realize very quickly, oh, my preparation doesn't come up to their level. I mean, they're much deeper. But equally often, I would realize, hey, what I had was good enough. I'm doing quite well. You're constantly fighting your own imagination. I think this is the point. In the end, as I got to know them better and better, they all became individuals to me. They became not some group called the Soviet grandmasters, but they were individuals, and each one was very, very different. And the country was pretty strange on its own. Again, from the outside, you see this kind of closed society. And there was very little information. They had very strange procedures. It's a trip into the unknown. But slowly you find they have very, very nice people, very friendly. And once that gap opens, it was fine. But most of my most memorable, beautiful tournaments were in Russia.
And the Russian president told you that you are a problem they created.
Yes, that was a nice touch. But even then, some of the best tournaments happen there because they have people who genuinely love chess. And when they sponsor chess events, they do them at a fantastic level. I always felt very appreciated there.
You are the world's greatest when it comes to excelling at so many formats of the game, rapid chess, for example. What does it take to make that one beautiful, perfect move on the chessboard?
You'll never know if you've made the perfect move at the chessboard. At most, you can be 99.99% sure. But over a long enough career, you will have so many moves that you are absolutely convinced were perfect. Either till you took your hand away from the piece and then, I don't know why the brain fills the information then. Wrong with it? Or even worse, when your opponent points it out. And I think that's the worst experience. But simply practice. If it's muscle memory. If you've rehearsed something 1,000 times, you know when it works, when it doesn't, and it just comes faster.
It's all about strategy, some would say. You say it is 99% tactics. Tell us a bit about the difference and why you believe that chess is actually a game of tactics more than strategy.
So in chess, strategy is, in 8 moves, I'd like my knight to get to this square, and I would like to execute this plan. I would like to attack the king. This is strategy. Strategy is simply a human way of dealing with tactics, of condensing lots of tactics. Somebody once said, strategy is just long-term tactics. Now computers are showing us that there is almost no strategy which doesn't have a few holes in it. Because the tactics have to work, and if the tactics don't work, the strategy is wrong. I'll put it this way, chess is essentially only tactics. Strategy is one method by which the human brain deals with the complexity, that's all.
How does this apply in life?
I imagine in life as well, probably a term that companies are more familiar with is, it's not about your strategy, it's only about your execution. So tactics, getting the details right, getting the execution right is more important than the grand plan. If you have the grand plan but you can't execute it well, or it's impossible to execute well, same problem. It doesn't work.
How does preparation fit in with the spontaneous nature of the game?
Listen, if I'm sitting in front of my chessboard before I'm going to face player A, I think my opponent has 2 or 3 favorite choices. He could pick and choose from any of these. Each of those has sub-variations, subplots. Something like 50 to 100 positions could happen today. Which one is it going to be? So I have my preparation. And you don't have the time to cover all the stuff in chess. It's just way too much. So what am I going to? Then I exercise my judgment. I think about my opponent. What kind of person is my opponent? What kind of chess player is my opponent? What are their likes and dislikes in chess and things like that? What happened to them yesterday? What happened to them the day before? So what is their mood? What is their physical shape? And these are just ingredients that go into the pot and something comes out. And then I'll put myself in my opponent's shoes. This is very important. And most times we will prepare the 5 most likeliest things in some depth because the odds of facing them are higher. Now, your opponent is sitting in his hotel room mimicking this process.
Yes.
Almost always, your opponent is trying so hard to surprise you that they succeed. So you end up having to improvise at the board. So 1 or 2 moves I expect, and then my preparation runs out and I have to start improvising. For that, you have general training.
So this is what you were thinking when you decided on your famous opening against Kramnik?
I was thinking stylistically. Almost all the things I could imagine after my move e4, the things he could choose, there were like 5 or 6. But all of them seemed unpleasant to me because I know that he's very good at his work. You're not thinking, if he does this, what can I do? You think, no matter what I do, he'll neutralize it somehow. Is this really what I want to play? So at that stage, I told myself, let me do the other thing. It's more unpredictable. He will not expect it. And I have about a year to get ready. But the most important thing, even if it's not new to him, it's new to me. Which means that I'll have a little bit of that sense of danger, that adrenaline flowing. And maybe that will get me to play better chess. So it was just a purely stylistic choice. Nonetheless, it was backed up by hard work. So you can take risks, but you don't have to be leaps into the unknown.
Now, sir, I'm sure that if the opponent makes a move they regret, they'll be smart enough not to show it. How do you catch the small giveaways, How do you kind of objectively get loose on that?
Quick glances. If you see someone, they do something like this. I've often had people do that, something like this. Like I have on a couple of occasions used a swear word almost silently, and then my opponent would smile. And then I realize he smiled and I can't pretend. It can be little things. If someone suddenly starts fidgeting like this, just the hands, you think something is up. But most of the time you don't need it. You should be able to see it at the board anyway. Of course, there are some very expensive ones, like my 6th game against Carlsen in Sochi. He made a move and I didn't even look at his move because I just thought he's making the obvious moves, and I pushed my a pawn almost within seconds, pressed my clock. And then he suddenly, he'd been holding back and he suddenly released. And once I had that information, I immediately saw that he had blundered and I could have won or got a much better position right away. Without that information, I didn't know that there was something to look for, so I didn't look for it. It's like probably somebody dropping a needle in a haystack.
You are one of the greatest players and you've played some of the greatest players. So it's all at the margin. How do you gain that edge? You can share some anecdotes.
In chess, the person who loses the game is one who's made the last mistake. So making mistakes, you just have to bake into your original assumption. And the rest is just execution. You hang in there. You say, I'm going to defend a little bit longer. My position is awful, but I'm going to just somehow sit here and tenaciously defend. At first, it seems like you're wasting your time. But after 5 moves, you realize your opponent is getting slightly annoyed. Maybe he thinks you should have resigned already and he's annoyed that he has to show it. 10 moves later, if you still somehow find a way, you realize that your opponent is starting to make slight inaccuracies. And then suddenly, you're back in the game. A couple of examples. There was a player whom I disliked a lot. So ironically, against him, I've defended some very difficult positions because I could not imagine resigning to him. Equally, I'm sure there are people who dislike me so much that they have defended much more tenaciously. Certainly, I've had nightmares against Kasparov, Karpov, Kramnik and so on, but hopefully they have some bad memories from me as well. But it's essentially that. Making good moves as long as you can and waiting for your opponent to make the first bad move.
2010, what memories does that year bring up?
The intensity of the match. So this was the year I played the match with Veselin Topalov in Bulgaria. Then when I was trying to go to Bulgaria, this volcano in Iceland erupted. Airspace across Europe got shut down. So we spent 5 days, we arrived 5 days late for the match. Then in the match, there were a couple of unexpected turns, even though that sort of thing is normal in a match. Hung in there somehow. Part of the aim was survive from day to day, and that was a good strategy because you cannot win the match unless you survive from day to day. So we were doing that. And then finally in game 12, he melted down. And you think, that's great because it's not something I did, but it's something I didn't do. I didn't melt down. I think the great news for us was that later that year my wife was expecting. So the next big thing from 2010.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I was speaking to Arunaji and she mentioned how that entire World Championship could be a Netflix pot boiler. Do you actually plan to turn that into a Netflix pot boiler?
Why not? It's a great story.
There were really spies who were trying to get an unfair advantage in terms of knowing how you're preparing, etc.
It was irresponsible to rule it out. So we got someone who could scan the room for bugs, and we had some procedures to make it more difficult, and we felt better. Again, one of the most important things is not to judge your feelings. If something bothers you, you should address it in some minor way.
You mentioned that 2012 was the year when you accepted that maybe you weren't in your top form. How did you deal with that, and how did you mold your life after that?
2011, I kind of stagnated. 2012, I beat Boris Gelfand, or rather I survived. I understood it was a narrow escape. On its own, it wasn't bad, but you combine this with the fact that for months I had not won a game, and then suddenly this match. And then by the end of the year, very, very unremarkable results. And by now we're talking close to 18 months, 20 months without a decent result, except for defending a world championship or surviving it. And you can't, at some point you have to drop the explanations, or maybe this will turn tomorrow. I had brief spikes in performance after that in 2013. It did get better. I thought, oh, finally I found my energy again, but then it slumped again. At that point, I not only accepted that my form wasn't good, I thought it's kind of over here. I couldn't see. I remember I went to this candidates tournament in Russia. I turned up because I had a free entry. I had no hopes, no expectations, and I won the tournament. And then my form went up for a while. In 2015, I actually had so many good performances. I achieved my highest ever rating, and I was second in the world again. And since then, it's been okay. Then after that, again, a slow descent. And in 2019, there were a couple of disappointing results when I finally decided, maybe this is the one thing I'm not going to come back from. All your life, you're used to this idea that everything is a cycle, and if you wait long enough, it'll turn. And that cannot be true infinitely. So in 2019, I came to the conclusion that probably it was better for me to play fewer tournaments, but play them well and with energy rather than try to compete the whole year. Mm-hmm. And then the pandemic happened, which helped me in this choice. And so that's kind of how I ended up today. Mm-hmm. But there were moments in early 2014 when I wondered if I'd have a career for much longer. It really felt that bad.
You stuck to chess. You were never disenchanted, never wanted to leave chess. How were you able to sustain the fire for being the best in your game for so long?
The main reason is simply that chess hooked me. It was fascinating. It was the thing that I was best at, which is also good because you want to keep doing the things that you're good at.
What's your belief system, how you look at life, the universe, and everything else?
I compartmentalize my beliefs very strictly. Um, I mean, I believe in God because it makes me happy and or gives me some comfort. But I have long since this idea that God is going to make difference to my chess games. I simply don't follow that very seriously anymore. But still, if I get a really bad position, I might silently say something. It's almost a habit rather than a thing. And my belief system these days is I'm reasonably good at chess, but there are many things I don't understand. So there are lots of things that can go wrong as well. So build in some caution in my assumptions. And in other areas of life, I always tell myself my ranking in chess is whatever. Right now it's number 9. A few years ago it was number 1. What's my ranking in this area? And then I think, well, I should probably not extrapolate too much from my assumptions.
How do you think luck and destiny has played a role in your journey, not just in chess, but in life generally?
There is luck. There are coincidences. So my mother knew chess, that she was able to teach me chess, that my parents moved to the Philippines a couple of years later. So there are lots of happy coincidences, and I could go on and on. There's luck also when sometimes results which I maybe don't deserve or haven't fully earned come to me anyway. But I also realize there are results that I do deserve that don't come to me, and these things balance out. In the end, you have to make luck. The more opportunities you give yourself to be lucky, so the more hard work you put in. And then there's the pure luck, which is you did nothing, but it happened anyway. Enjoy those lottery tickets.
So you're not superstitious?
I am superstitious, but I'm not superstitious. I will, if I win a game on the previous day, I will go back to breakfast the next morning, try to have it at the exact same time, try to repeat my routine. There is paranoia. But I'm not superstitious, but I can't help it, especially during tournaments. In other areas, I think I've reduced it a bit.
Mm-hmm. You are devoting more time to mentoring some of the younger players. How does that feel? Is that an area that you want to dedicate more time and energy going forward?
It's quite interesting because I got this offer from Westbridge. They said, do you want to do something together in chess? Mm-hmm. And I said, well, we could do this, pick some of our promising youngsters. And that's been fascinating. It's a chance to help them a little bit. I was seeking someone who will continue to represent India at the highest level, at the top. We have succeeded ahead of time. I mean, my time frames were all over the place. They were between 3 and 5, but that in the 3rd year it happens, that's great. That Gukesh is now in the top 10, he's higher ranked than me. Mm-hmm. That Pragnananda is playing the candidates. That's certainly something I'll do, but I do multiple projects now, and I like it this way. I'm the deputy president of FIDE. I'm with Olympic Gold Quest. I'm the board of directors there. For the moment, that seems very, very enjoyable.
You've been at the top for 37 years as an Indian player. Rankings and ratings are not permanent. Who do you feel most confident about when it comes to sustaining the journey for decades and not just burning out?
I think those are very sweeping judgments to make for me. I don't feel I have enough information. Mm-hmm. So for the moment, I'm just enjoying their good results. On the face of it, I think all of them will be around for a long time.
Also, the way the game is evolving. We have artificial intelligence. We had computers earlier, but how do you see the format of the game evolve in the years to come, considering that there are new trends which perhaps weren't explored earlier?
The way the game is played now is a lot of things which our coaches would have told us never to do when I was young are now commonplace. So one of the things computers and AI have been showing us already for quite some time is that the game is much richer than we had realized. But they're also closing a lot of doors because they calculate so fast in many lines, it's hard to keep up. Mm-hmm. But they constantly help the game evolve. So learning methods are changing every year, literally. But AI is also playing a crucial role with the fans and things like that, because it allows them to understand what happens in the game. And so in that sense, I think it'll help the game sell itself, because if a fan can understand what's going on, thanks to the help of these machines, then it's easier to appreciate the struggle.
Mhm. Is it harder to differentiate now, considering that it's available to everyone, right? It's not a commodity only a few possess. I mean, anyone could have access to these algorithms. How can they use it differently to differentiate the outcome?
Well, like all arms races, the ones who use the weapons better name of the game.
How would you say it can be used better?
Keeping up with the trends, keeping up with the thing, and trying to always bring your human perspective to what the machine is saying. I mean, you have to translate what it says into what you can use, and I think that's the key.
It's also the moral code of conduct. Do you think that we need a framework to minimize the cases of cheating that perhaps have been on the rise recently? In fact, you were at the receiving end a couple of years ago.
I don't know if it can be brought down to zero, but as long as there is deterrence and punishment. So there are two levels. One is to be able to stop everyone before they cheat. But the second one is if someone cheats once and they get a 2-year ban or a lifetime ban, that changes the calculus. Is it worth it? So you deter, just like crime. It's a problem which, unfortunately, people on the outside now think is rampant in the chess world. It's very common, but it's not. It's still a very, very small fraction. However, anything which starts to pick up a trend has to be stamped out. And cheating is something that FIDE and almost every online portal is working very hard to confront. So you mentioned this Simul a couple of years ago. Well, the computer said this doesn't match a player of his strength, and that's how they were caught. So in a sense, the matter ended there. It started there, it ended there.
You said you're enjoying this phase of life. Tell us a bit about what keeps you busy now.
Travel is still the dominant thing in my life, but now more often than not, I'm traveling not to play a chess tournament. So that's a kind of new twist. Funnily enough, I'm spending more time at home as well. If your son simply has an assumption that in a few days, Appa will go again somewhere, and then for 2 weeks he realizes, wait, he's not going anywhere. That's a new relationship almost.
Yes.
So that is nice. One of the things we do together very often is we play badminton together. Maybe the one big thing for us will be to have some nice holidays again. We haven't had it in a while, so just a chance for all the family to get out together and so on. Catch up with school friends, hang out. As time goes on, you learn to appreciate every single moment, not only special ones.
Your son is a budding Picasso. I saw some of his paintings. Where has he really taken that from?
I don't know. It's beautiful. He discovered that there are math patterns, and then he discovered that they are abundant in nature, like the Fibonacci. And then he started getting very excited about math patterns, looking for them everywhere. He started spotting them everywhere. What we've tried to do then is expose him to different kind of Indian art. So we try to encourage him in this thing, but it's really amazing. It's self-driven. I'm not someone who could have influenced him in any way in this area. Aruna more so, she knows much more about art, but even she, I think, was surprised to see where this was going with him. So,
You talk a lot about connecting the dots. When you look back at life, how do you think the dots have connected?
I'm quite happy with where I've ended up. I believe that I started out aiming to be a chess player. I'm quite lucky that I was able to play chess for a living, because it's the one thing that I love the most, and so that tied up well. I'm happy with the way many things have shaped up. I also know that many of the things that were hard and difficult, just part of life. And in a sense, then yes, the dots have connected. Some setbacks were to be expected, but mostly, if you draw up a balance, you have to be happy with this.
Sir, thank you so much for your time, and it was so good speaking with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.